Hey everyone, this is John Barton. I'm on live stream here on Facebook. Hold on, I got to turn this MacBook camera off. Okay. So guys, this is a mega stream here. See, my hair's getting grayer. All right, so here's the deal. Most of you know me. My name is John Barton from JB Cases, and let me pop the camera over here so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. Now I can look directly in the camera, right? They say a trick there is you should put somebody's face under the camera or something so you can look in somebody's eyes or whatever. Anyway, so here's the deal. We're doing a mega stream here. Not a mega stream. It's a mega rant, okay? Anyway, this rant right now is, let me make sure I got audio and everything. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Okay, I can see the mic going there. We've got everything going on. All right, that looks good. Okay, so this is kind of a free format here. I got stuff going on. I need to, let me grab my phone real quick and make sure this is getting on YouTube. So, give me a second here while I get this stuff all done. See, when you have your own business, a lot of times you are like the you do everything here. So I'm my own production manager. I'm all this. You know, I don't. People think that I'm a millionaire from JB Cases, but that's not true. So anyway, let's see here if I can get myself on YouTube here and find this live stream and see if it's making any noise. So can I see myself? My videos? Nope. Videos? Am I live or not live? I don't know. Well, I can't tell if I'm live, so if there's a chat, will you guys tell me whether you can see me or not? Bad video settings. Current keyframes are not being sent often enough, which will cause buffering. Note that ingestment. Please use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. Okay, how do I do that? 8 people watching now. Okay. Okay, please tell me. All right, so something about keyframes here, so one moment while I try this. Output, keyframe interval. I'm supposed to do 4 seconds or less. Keyframes, note that ingestion. I don't know what that means. Okay, let's try 2. Okay. John, is that my case? Okay, maroon and black. Okay, Mike. Greg can hear me? Okay, good deal. All right, give me a second while I put this stream up on Facebook real quick, or if one of you guys can go to my thing and find it. Where is the add stream info? Where is the link to it? I don't know. Server URL, basic info. Here we go. I can't find where to give you guys a link to this. Stream options. Cards. Where's the link? All right. Well, if any of you guys can share the link on here, that would be great. I'm not sure how to do it. Okay, there we go. Share right there. Copy. Facebook. Okay. John Boy. All right. right, here we go, folks. All right, so now we got it on Facebook so people can see it. All right, so here's the basic premise, okay? For those of you who know me, you know also that I created Open Billiards Market on Facebook. This was intended to be a marketplace, you know, where people could go and buy and sell their stuff. And I wanted to set up some rules to kind of, you know, minimize arguing and you know, address some of the issues that had popped up in the AZ Billiards marketplace, and make it a little bit more freer, but with some more common sense rules. And you know, I didn't really expect it to go super crazy on there, but over the past 3 years, myself and the admins and the moderators that are with me have managed to see this site grow to 28,000 users, more than 28,000. Well, the other day, this past weekend, you know, I was scrolling through, and I don't even go on OBM a lot myself, but I was scrolling through, and I just saw a lot of knockoff cases on there, and I got tired of it. You know, I am a maker of Q cases, as you guys know, JB cases, right? But before that, I made in-stroke Q cases. Arguably, my designs, the designs that we've made, have been among the most copied, I mean knocked off verbatim designs on the planet. You know, everything I've ever made has been knocked off either in whole or in part in some way. And, you know, I've had to fade that for a lot of years. And I've had to, back in the 90s, my own customers, my own wholesale customers went out and made knockoffs of my in-stroke designs and then put them in their catalog right beside my cases, like there was nothing wrong with that. And they knew that I was too poor back then to just say, you know what, screw you, and I'm going to pull my cases. You guys can sell knockoffs if you want. They even went so far as to start calling their customers and telling their customers that their version of my design was actually better than mine, better than the original, and less money. You know, so you can imagine, you know, how that played with me, and how much pride I had to swallow to continue to sell what I could to these people while they're selling as much as they can of the knockoffs, making more money on the knockoffs profit-wise, and just not giving a shit about it. So anyway, you know, I started this Open Billiards Market, and I realized that I have created a sales channel that is really great. It's really active. You know, I mean, I kind of did a back of the napkin calculation a year or so ago, you know, when we were approaching 20,000 visitors or members. And I figured, you know, that we were doing at least like $100,000-$200,000 a year was probably, you know, changing hands and transacting on that site. Now, just to be clear, I don't make any money on that. None of the moderators or the admins have any financial interest in Open Billiards Market. There's no money to be made. I mean, or we're not trying to make any money off of Open Billiards Market. Some of our moderators and some of the admins, you know, they also sell from time to time. But we barely put up any cases on there. I mean, we're really busy all the time. You can see my back wall here is fairly empty. You know, we're busy all the time. We take calls every day. We're getting to the point where we're getting lots of orders every day, and we just simply don't have time to continually put stuff up on the marketplaces that are out there, especially our own. But anyway, I realized that this channel that I created was actually enabling people to sell copies of our cases, of other makers' cases. And I just said, this is one little thing that I can do to combat against those knockoffs, okay? I can just not have a channel where they can be presented and sold to a lot of people. I just don't think that's a good idea. I can't do anything about the rest of the internet. I can't do anything about eBay, and I can't do anything about all the other sales groups on Facebook. Obviously, right? I can't do anything about all the dealers out there that know that they're buying and selling knockoffs and they choose to do it anyway. But this is one thing that I can do. Myself and our other admins and mods have nurtured Open Billiards Market for over 3 years now. We have listened to everyone's bitching and whining and complaining. We've gotten in between arguments and tried to make peace with people. We've tried to maintain a list of, who's good to work with and maintain another separate forum for transaction reports. And people don't realize this is actually a lot of work to keep all this up. Now, I don't do as much work as the other admins do because, thankfully they've stepped in to volunteer to help. But it's still a lot of work for everybody involved. And at the end of the day, I think it's only fair that the people who come there, the members, that they understand, that we should be allowed to set the marketplace up, to be a little bit more ethical and a little bit more fair and a little bit more moral for those people in our billiard industry, our small, tiny billiard industry, who put all their blood and sweat and tears into making a product only to see it knocked off, by a big distributor or some big Chinese company over there or Vietnamese company or Thai company or whatever, or even domestics. There's small makers who, for whatever reason, they decide that they're going to be knockoff artists. Instead of coming up with their own creative stuff, they decided, well, they're going to take, some famous designs or some really nifty, popular designs from makers, and then they're going to do it. And those people are banned too now, because I don't think it's right. Now, here's the deal with this. Tonight, I am going to explain to you the differences between a counterfeit, a knockoff, a case that is inspired, construction, decoration, right? Attribution, permission, cooperation, right? And design theft. So we're going to go through all this, and we're going to go through some legal terms as well, like copyright, trademark, design patent, and what else do we have? Oh, patent, regular patents, okay? This is so that you guys can understand where I'm coming from as a maker, okay? Now, when I say maker, I want you to understand something. I'm a little bit different than some of the makers that you may think of, okay? A lot of the makers in our industry, when you think of them, you think of cue makers perhaps, or you think of maybe small case makers, all right? These guys are, a lot of times they're like one-man operations. They get in there. Everything that is done on the product, most of it is done by them in some way or another. They've got to calibrate their machines. They've got to use them. They've got to cure the wood. They do everything, right? So the end result, the end resulting product is completely made by them, outside of whatever parts that they actually can't make themselves. But basically, from an assembly of parts to a finished product, one person did it, essentially, right? That's what most people think of when they think of a maker in our industry and overall, right? Now, what a lot of you guys don't know though is that there are also shops where you have a maker like me who started out just doing one, the same way, just putting stuff together one at a time, and they hire other people to work in the shop to take over a lot of the labor so that they can continue to innovate, and they're not bogged down by all the tedious work that goes into making the cases. I'll just stick with Q cases for the moment. So you guys feel free to chat and kind of let me know that everything's still good there, okay? And I'm not going Facebook Live on this or anything. That's all too much for me to do for the production. But anyway, so me, right? So what I did is I created a workshop. I started out in my apartment. First of all, let me back up a little bit more, okay? For those of you who don't know. When I started making cases, I did it. I did it in 1991 in Koblenz, Germany, in the attic of my apartment building. So that's where I made cases. I borrowed a sewing machine from my girlfriend's aunt, whatever, and she taught me how to use it, and that's what I did when I started making cases. And then, pretty soon, when winter rolled around and I realized how cold it was up there, I moved down into our little basement storage room, and that was the beginning of what became in-stroke cases. At first, they were called stroke cases, and then I renamed it to in-stroke cases because I thought that was better. But anyway, so I started making cases, and then I, gradually I got a couple assistants, and we just kept on going that way. And eventually, I had such a good order book full of orders. I walked in one day and I realized there's nothing that I'm making here is what I actually want to make. So I had gotten away from making the cases that I wanted. Now I'm going to show you guys something real quick, okay, with that. So this is an example of one of the cases that we made back then, and this was kind of my style. Now I want to back up and give you just another little bit of history, okay, of how I even got into making cases at all. I had a leather case. First of all, I had a Porper case, and I loved that Porper case. It was great. I was one of the first guys in the pool room with one. The cues went in and they stayed in. Everything was secure. And then a friend of mine went to Florida from Germany, and he came back with these leather cases that I had never heard of. And those were called, we called them flowers cases back then, but the actual name on the case was JEF Q case. Anyway, so I bought one from him, and because I thought it was cool. And, it was a nice leather case. So I'm at a pool tournament, and in this case, I was always putting my cue in bumper up, because I thought that's how it was, because that's what I did in the Porper. Anyway, I set my case on a table, and I had opened it, getting ready to take the cues out, and I started talking to someone, and another guy kind of slides past me, trying to get past, and he knocks my case off the table. He didn't see it, and the case shoots out and hits the leg of the adjoining table on there, and it breaks the butt cap. And this was a beautiful Sean that I had saved up for, and it was my favorite cue. So I have to send the cue back to the U.S. to get the butt cap fixed, and while it's gone, I look at the case and I decide that I'm going to rebuild the interior of this case so that my cues can go in like the Porper and never fall out. So it can be turned over, not fall out, and then I thought that would be good, So I did that. I just took the case, took the tubes out. It was easy to pull them out. You just reached in and pulled the plumbing tubes out, and which was also surprising to me. But the thing of it is I rebuilt that interior, and it worked just like I wanted it to. It was a little bit clunky, If you guys had seen how I did it, it was definitely some weird engineering, but it worked. But then I looked at it, and I thought to myself, you know what? This really isn't my style. It's not the kind of case that it's not my personal taste, if you will. Having a leather satchel type case, that's not me. So I decided that what I would do is I would try my hand at building the whole thing. Okay? And that's, you know, how we came into to cases like this. So these cases right here, I did all this embroidery that you guys see here. All that embroidery was done by hand right there. So you'll notice this is two pieces spliced together, and I did that. Okay? This was a patch right here, and I embroidered around it. See that little patch? That was a patch, and I embroidered around it to kind of blend it into the pocket. And then we did funky stuff like the pockets and things like that, you know. And then here, I didn't have any buckles, so we did this. Now, I'm kind of getting off track here, but there's a method to this, okay? You'll notice if you look at it that it's kind of like a porper, you know. I mean, it's got a zipper on top, and you'll see here we did the tubes. Now, you guys probably can't see that very well, but this is made so that these tubes are padded. It goes in. Cues stay inside. They don't move. This actually would come over the butts right there. And excuse me for a second. Hello, this is John.
Well, John, my name's Herb Oldmeyer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
I have been watching you on YouTube quite a bit and been following you quite creatively.
I'm live now on YouTube, by the way.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said I'm live on YouTube right now, by the way.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I don't mean to
You're all right.
waste your time. I want to make a statement here. I recently bought a case from you through NDQ or Indie Cases.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they haven't received the case from you, which I've already paid for 3 weeks ago.
We need to talk about that a little bit later. I've not received any information on that. So we definitely need to work that out later. Can I call you back after I'm done with this video?
Yes, sir, you can.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, we'll get it cleared up one way or the other. Okay?
I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. I shouldn't have answered it in the first place, but I don't like the ringing to bother us. So let's turn that to do not disturb. Okay, good. Okay, so where was I at with that? Yeah, so where we were at was I just wanted to make the whole case, right? So I did it all. I mean, I even embroidered this logo myself. Okay, so the thing of it is, though, is that I tried my best to look at what Porper did, to look at what Jay Flowers did, and I'm going to interject something here. Nora Van Horn was actually the maker of those cases, not Jay Flowers. Okay, so we didn't find that out until later, but that'll come later in the story. So, how many viewers do we have here? Anybody even watching this? I have no idea. Okay. So, anyway, yeah, you know, I just wanted to kind of take whatever they had done and incorporate it in here and try to build a better case. So that's kind of, you know, that's one example of the type of style of case that I was making. And then later, as I said, you know, I got an order book and I filled it up with orders, and one day I just said, you know, I'm not making anything that's my kind of art anymore, so to speak. You know, I don't really think of myself as an artist, but, you know, I do have some ideas and some creative things I wanted to do. And I had filled up an order book where all I was doing was making cases for other people, and no time at all to do what I wanted to do. So one day I just said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I canceled all the orders. I didn't take any deposits back then, so I didn't owe anybody any money. And we just decided we were going to go into like a mass production type environment, you know. And that's, you know, kind of how the in-stroke cases that you guys probably know were introduced to the market. And those cases here are. So I'll show you guys one of those real quick. like this style of case here. This style of case, that's an in-stroke case. So you guys probably know that. You can, you know the iconic design and everything on there. And that's, that's the in-stroke case. So that cowboy style case became like the most popular in-stroke. And there's a lot of influence in there from the flower style case, that I had owned before. Because I didn't really know any better. I thought I wasn't much of a leather worker. I was just trying to put stuff together, based on my own interpretation of how I thought it would work and how I could do it better. So, is this coming over clear, guys? Can you guys give me a sound check here? Awesome. Can you guys give me a sound check and let me know that everything's coming over clearly, because my internet's not that great. I just want to make sure that I'm not just, rambling to the camera and you guys can't really hear me. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Garrett. All right. So anyway, right? So I did the in-stroke cases and I came up with a lot of different designs. And my idea there was, to do a bunch of cases that were similar to all the other cases on the market in terms of different styles and things like that, but to add in my own little bits to each one to try to make it better in my mind than what had gone before. So that's construction. So that's what construction is about. It's about looking at whatever's gone before and trying to add in your 2 cents and kind of build it a little bit better, a little tighter, a little stronger. So to that end, I came up with butterfly cases, for example. So all the butterfly cases, for example, used to have handles on this side, and a lot of them still do. But they would have like a set of handles here, so you'd have to undo the handles, or you had 2 handles right there. And I changed it where the handles are on this side, and you can see that they're strong right there, and the strap is over here. And I was the first one who put pockets on butterfly cases on the outside. No one had ever done that before me. And then you can see here we have a board in here, and this board has elastic bands right there. So, I thought that was pretty cool back then. It was an easy way to get the cues in and out. Everything fit good, and it worked, So that was my version of the butterfly case. But if you just say to yourself, well, gosh, a butterfly case existed, a case that zips open all the way and opens up that way, and John Barton made a butterfly case, therefore he knocked off whoever was before him, then you'd be right. If you want to say that a whole genre of case, a whole type of case is never to be made by anybody else, then that would only be one guy ever who made a butterfly case. And obviously that's stupid, right? We all understand that. So these people on Open Billiards Market, after I made this rule, they started to kind of go off on me and say, oh, well, you did this or you did that, and therefore you can't say anything about knockoffs because you yourself, John Barton, have knocked somebody off. You've done this, you've done that, right? But the thing is, what they fail to understand is construction, is not the same. When you're building something, you can go and you can build things like other people build them. Okay, now we're going to talk about a legal term, patents, right? So patents cover anything utilitarian, the way something works. The idea behind a patent is you want to invent something that is novel and new and has never been on the market before. And the reason patents exist is so that the inventor can have a period of time where he can capitalize on his investment of time in bringing that thing to market. It costs a lot of money to actually do a really good patent. And most of the time, anybody, with a decent lawyer can defeat a patent pretty easily. So as a result, most of the things in the billiard industry, especially in Q cases, are not patented. So the things I did to improve these cases, some of those things were probably patentable, but I wasn't going to spend the time to go and money. I didn't even have the money to do it, to go and patent these things. And even if I had patented them, if somebody infringes on it, if they decide they're going to copy it and do what I did, and they're wrong and I'm right and I could take them to court, it costs a lot of money to go to court. I had a trademark dispute that cost me $40,000. And at the end of the day on that, all we did was the judge made us sign an agreement, that they wouldn't do it anymore. I didn't get any money back for all the infringement. But anyway, so that covers patents, right? So if there's no patent on it, anybody can build it. They can copy my case, the construction of it, verbatim if they want to. But you know what? That's actually not even a problem. Okay? It's really not a problem. Let people do that. Do it. Because to be honest with you, inventing stuff for Q cases is not that hard. Okay? This is not, to use a phrase, it's not rocket science here. It's just sitting down and playing with different things and figuring it out. It's time consuming. It can be. But it's not rocket science. It's not something that I feel necessarily deserves to be patented, so to speak. So my opinion on that is that everything construction-wise is pretty much fair game. And I've always, all of my construction stuff, all the things that I've done and invented and innovated, and I'll show you some of them in a minute, all of those things I've given away freely, people could take them freely anyway. They weren't patented. But what I mean by that is I have freely shared with other case makers how to do them. I've shared how to do them with other leather workers. Anyone who's asked me, I've done video tutorials, I've done photographic tutorials, I've done live stream like this and showed people what to do. Anybody who's asked me, I've been always happy to share the construction techniques that I've created, or I've discovered on there. And also, a lot of my colleagues have always been forthcoming about the things that they do to help. So in that way, we all build on what each others have done to make a better case, And I think that's what we really want is, at the end of the day, we want to all be providing the very best case structurally and from a protective standpoint that we can. At least that's how I feel and how I think a lot of my colleagues feel. It's definitely how I feel. Okay, so I definitely share what we do, and if anybody wants to copy it or do it, they can. Now I'll admit, if I see somebody come out with a copy of our stuff, there's a little bit of a twinge there from my side of it, where I'm like, damn it. But on the other hand, as a player, somebody who's got cues that he values and everything, I really do appreciate the fact that other case makers are starting to think more about protection and provide a better base of protective cases for everyone. So that's why I don't give a shit about how a case is constructed in terms of whether or not one case maker took any part of that construction from another case maker. I don't care about that, I don't. And maybe other people care about it, but I don't. And I don't consider that to be knockoffs and copying and so on. Yeah, it's copying. And yes, it's also knockoffs, but it's not copying and knockoffs in the sense of stealing someone's design work when they create a distinctive look, right? And they create a distinctive flavor, if you will, and then somebody comes along and says, oh, wow, I see that's really popular. People like that flavor. They like that look. They like that dish. I'm just going to copy that and ride and coast on their work, you know, on all the marketing and everything that they've done to bring that to market. I'm gonna copy that and run with it, and I'm gonna sell as many as I can sell until I can't sell them anymore, and then I'll move on to the next design and I'll sell that. So basically what they do is they take my work as far as all the way a case looks, and they make me into their research and development guy. You know, so all the work that we do, creating different looks and designs, all the stuff that you see back here, what happens is I become the research and development. You know, I'm the one that invests the time, getting the looks, making sure, you know, checking to see if people like it, putting them on the market, going to tournaments, going to shows, paying for advertisement, doing stuff like this on video so that you guys can see the work. I do all that to present new designs to you, and then, you know, Joe Blow comes behind me and says, oh man, I see a lot of people like that. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the whole thing the way it looks. And not only that, I'm going to, you know, write up on this case, and I'm going to take all of the description and all of the claims that JB is making, and I'm going to claim that too, you know, because these people, they won't know the difference. And you know what? It turns out to be true. Because right now, we are in a period in the information age of actual information overload. A lot of ways we have information overload, and a lot of ways we have not enough information. And in the pool industry, we don't have a Consumer Reports. We don't have any independent bodies that are going to take these cases and say, oh yeah, you know what? JB's got a pretty good reputation. We tested his stuff last year. It holds up to the claims, you know, in 98%, but this one part where he does, you know, that he could definitely do better at that. But anyway, here's our score. And now this year, somebody comes along and knocks him off, and then they take that and they say, well, let's see how this knockoff compares to JB. And they say, oh yeah, well, you know, overall, this is like a 57% quality score compared to JB's 98, and you know, because the case is like $50 or $100 less, we don't recommend it because it's going to fall apart soon. You don't have anything like that. You don't have that. So it means that people can knock off the look of the cases, but they don't have to put all the quality into it. They don't have to do that. And then you have other cases that are, you know, they're probably fairly decent as a case, but then the guy just takes the look. He just finds somebody else who's got a really nice design, and he steals that design and puts it on top of his platform, and everybody goes out and they're like, wow, you know, that's really cool. And it gets to the point where the person who made the design originally is thought to be the copy, because the other guy has got so many cases out there and he's selling so many of them, and he's got so broad a selection of cases based on that iconic design that he stole. Okay, now when I say stole, I don't mean legally stole, okay? Because now we're going to get into copyright, for example, and design patents. So I'll explain that to you. I mean morally and ethically stole, okay? He's got so many cases out there that eventually people just, first, the ones who know who did the design first, if they're inclined to say something, they actually get tired of it and they just stop saying it. You know, oh, that's a nice Justice design, you know, for example, whenever somebody shows the other one, the knockoff. Or they just don't say anything at all because they don't care. And what ends up happening is the new people coming in, they praise the knockoff artist as if he came up with that all on his own, and he happily accepts the praise and never, ever, ever tells anybody where the damn design came from. You know, not even that little bit of courtesy could he give up, even though it won't affect sales one bit, not even that tiny little bit of courtesy, could he give up and say, thank you guys for the compliments, but that's actually not my design. It's just like, I took what Jack did and I kind of made my own interpretation and, here it is. Can't even do that. Can't even do that. And I find that to be despicable. Okay? I find it to be just completely despicable. This is crazy. I watch myself on here and I think I'm starting to talk like Trump, Anyway, So let's talk about copyright, because a lot of you are confused. So we talked about patents. Copyright is what exists on the creation of any kind of art, performance, song, stuff like that, drawings, anything like that. So if I draw a picture of a case, that picture is copyrighted. If I take a picture of a case, it's copyrighted. If I build a case based on the picture, the case is not copyrighted. At least not in the United States. In the United States, there is no copyright on utilitarian items. That includes cues. There's no copyright. Now, copyright exists, for art, for example. So if somebody draws something and then you put that on a case or on a t-shirt or something like that, then that is actually copyrighted, okay? The art itself is copyrighted. But the art has to exist prior to putting it on a shirt or something like that. Now, normally, of course, that would be that way. But that's just the artwork, okay? If someone creates a t-shirt and it's got like this logo on it and stuff, the logo itself is a trademark. It's copyrighted and trademarked. But the whole t-shirt itself, so if somebody did something like this, but they switched up the words a little bit, but it had the same kind of look and everything, that wouldn't be protected. All right? So it wouldn't be. If they made, like KB faces or something on here, it wouldn't be protected. So I hope that you guys understand the difference there. So, are you guys still with me? Somebody write something on the chat so that we can make sure that we're still good. All right. I bet you guys want to see some cases, don't you? Here, I'm going to stick this. Let's see if I can get that up there where we can see it. Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, cool. So, thank you, Garrett. All right, good deal. So, copyright. We're clear on copyright. Design patent. Now, you can get what is called a design patent. And it's very, very limited as to what it is. So, for example, I could get a design patent on this, but it would only cover exactly this. So if somebody went in and they did this, but they changed up like 10% or 20, I don't know what the threshold is, but it's not very much, that it substantially looks like this, but there's enough changed on it, the design patent won't work. So design patents are often called a poor man's patent because a lot of people get them because they're cheap, thinking that it covers the utilitarian part, but it doesn't. It only covers the look, and it's very, very narrow. So basically, design patents are generally not worth they're not worth the paper they're printed on. The other thing that is informal, okay, is called trade dress. Maybe you guys heard about the lawsuit between Apple and Samsung, where Samsung had a judgment against them for like $1 billion. Because it was found that that they had taken like Apple's rounded corners. They basically took the look of the iPhone, and the court decided that they had substantially taken the look, and that the iPhone look constituted trade dress. In other words, the look of the whole phone itself was a trademark. Even though you can't trademark the look of something. That's called trade dress, okay? So that is possible. So for example, you know, the look of the in-stroke case could be considered possibly trade dress, you know, if that becomes the iconic part of something where it's instantly recognizable by consumers, and when they look at it, they're like, that's an in-stroke, right? A court could consider that to be trade dress if it all went to court and got that far along. But again, remember what I said about it being crazy expensive to go to court with this stuff. Really, it's stupid, you know? So little guys like us in the billiard industry, we just don't have any chance. We don't have any chance at all, really, to fight these fights, these intellectual property fights, when in fact we even have an intellectual property protection on it, you know, supposedly protection. You can literally go to jail in America for years for stealing, like if you steal a TV, you know, over $500 or over $1,000, whatever the felony threshold is. If you steal stuff worth, you know, over the felony threshold, you can literally go to jail for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever they decide to sentence you. And there's a minimum sentence, you know, with that. But if you steal somebody's design, if you steal their copyright, if you steal their patent, you know, if you infringe on that stuff, then the person who holds that patent or holds that copyright, a lot of times they're going to have to spend a lot of money to actually stop somebody from doing it, you know, and to actually recover any money or damages or anything. And then to actually send somebody to jail over it, you know, is a long road from discovery of the theft of the intellectual property to actual jail. All right, so I hope that this frames it for you guys to understand where I'm coming from on this. Now, so we're clear about copyright and we're clear about design patent. All right, let's talk about trademarks, okay? Because this is another one that people throw around. They don't understand the term of what a trademark is and what it's for, and they say something like, well, you know, if your design is not trademarked, then, you know, how come, you know, that's your fault if you know, and they don't understand what it actually is. So trademarks are brands or distinctive colors, anything that a company wants to use to identify themselves to consumers as a badge, where consumers can see that and immediately associate that company's products with whatever that company's quality reputation is. So typically, of course, people want to have a good quality reputation associated with their brand, right? Their trademark. So when somebody sees this trademark, they say to themselves, that's good. Whatever has that mark on it is a good product. You know, I trust it. That's all a trademark is. And trademarks are actually there for consumer protection, not corporate protection. Trademarks exist so that a corporation can legally say to a customer, you can trust us if you see this on here. And then they have to protect that reputation, right? They have to actually have quality products. So when somebody takes a product and they copy it and then they illegally use the trademark, that is called a counterfeit. That is an infringement on the trademark. That's when they copy a product one-to-one and they use a trademark. If they make a wholly different product, you know, and they use the trademark. So for example, if they take this case, this is a Rusty Melton, for example, and they put an in-stroke logo on here, then whoever made the case would be infringing on in-stroke's trademark. Okay? They would be telling the customer, this is an in-stroke, you can trust it because it says in-stroke on it, but it wouldn't be a counterfeit It would just be it would be trademark infringement. But that's what a trademark is, okay? And if they took and they made a copy of this case, if they made a copy of this case and they put the in-stroke logo on it, then it would be a counterfeit, which is illegal, and a trademark violation, which is also illegal. Now, oddly enough, people can go to jail for selling counterfeit items because that is considered defrauding the consumer. It's defrauding the consumer. So they can go to jail for that because they're representing something as what it's not. They can go to jail for selling things that are trademark violations because that is also defrauding the consumer. But if a company wants to send somebody to jail for infringing on their trademark, that's considered a civil matter. So I hope you guys can understand a little bit more about the legalities here with patents, design patents, copyrights, and trademarks, okay? So let's talk about what is a knockoff as far as decoration goes. So I showed you guys the in-stroke case here. So let's look at some other cases and see what we got. I got a whole bunch of cases here from different makers. So I'm going to pull a couple of them out so you guys can see some things. Okay, this one here, let's see what this is. This is an in-stroke, okay? So you can see the iconic cowboy design on there. I created this. I was the first one, as far as I know, to use like these heavy-duty latches on here. I recreated this latch. These latches on the first cases, for example, were really weak. And then I made them better on there. So I did as much as I could with that. But anyway, let's find a knockoff here somewhere. What do we got? Here we go. So check this out. This is a caliber. Okay, you can find these with all kinds of brands on there, all right? But obviously you guys should be able to see how much that looks like an in-stroke case. Now, if you're an average consumer out there and someone comes up to you and they say, this is a good case, right? They say it's leather, it's got all this, it's it's got a good interior inside, look, it's very solid, everything's great. What are you going to believe? If you don't have any real information out there, if nobody's out there telling you that this Caliber brand is bad or whatever brand is on it, if there's not a lot of reports out there about problems with this case, then if someone tells you that it is as good as the in-stroke case, you're going to tend to believe it. Here, I want to show you guys this case here. Okay, here's an in-stroke case. Now, if I have both these cases side by side right here, if you were right here in my shop, the quality differences between these two would be obvious. They'd be obvious to you. Anybody sitting there trying to do this, they'd be obvious. Now, I'm going to try something live on camera, and we're going to see how good the caliber is here. I'm going to see if it's possible for me to pull this apart without much effort right here. You see what I just did right there? That shouldn't even be possible. At least not with that amount of effort. It should hurt me. I should be really straining trying to tear that case apart. And that's with nothing inside of it, So you can imagine if you're walking around carrying this case, what's going to happen here after that thing works itself loose and all that in there. So basically, whoever sold this case to the person who bought it cheated them. They cheated them. Because the person that bought it was looking at this case and thinking, oh yeah, that looks pretty good, you know? He don't know. He can't tell what's inside the case. He doesn't know how it was built inside. He doesn't know how well it's constructed. He can't see past this part up here. So if he goes out online and he sees cases, you know, that are, the brand says in-stroke, but it looks just like this, a regular consumer can be forgiven for thinking that this case is the equivalent of this case. A regular consumer can be forgiven for thinking that. Now, that's if nobody talks to the consumer. You know, he sees this case over here for sale, and he sees this case over here for sale, and he has to come up with a conclusion in his own mind. This case is over here for $300. This one's over here for $150. This one says leather. This one says leather. You know, this might not even be leather, or it might have a little bit of leather on it, but it says leather, right? So to the consumer, it's two cards, and it's two products that look exactly the same. He can't compare each one side by side, so he can be forgiven for thinking that the cheaper one is just as good as the other one. But what happens when you have a seller that is standing there telling him that the cheap one is great? Yeah, this case is super strong. This case protects your cue as good as any other case on the market. Look at it, it's leather, right? Look at this interior, feel how solid it is. But you know what? Never do these sellers go to the guy and say, hey man, why don't you try to rip this handle off of this case? You know, here, let me prove to you how strong it is. Go right ahead. They don't do it because they know what would happen. So effectively what they're doing is they're lying to the customer by either saying outright that this case is a great case or insinuating that it's a great case. They're just lying. They lie online. They lie to the customer's face. They're just straight up liars. So, having said that, because before all you sellers out there get upset with me, I'm sure I'm going to hear a lot back about that. Some of the people who sell these products are themselves ignorant and therefore innocent. Okay? What they do is they follow whatever the distributor told them. Whatever the big distributor told them, who ripped off all the content and told them that that told them that the case was just as good as XYZ brand. They just parrot that without ever finding out anything different. And then they tell the customer, who pushes it on down the line. And because the billiard industry is so small and so scattered, there's no central database, there's no central consumer reports where people can go in and put all of their bad dealings in there. They can't put their bad experiences in there, and most people aren't motivated to do it anyway. So there's nowhere where people can go easily to find this information. So generally, they end up buying these cases, the cases fall apart, and they're just like, well, whatever, I guess I lose the money, you know, no warranty. So the point of that is that when I owned InStroke, I could never sue these people, you know, for any of the crap that they did. So it's the manufacturer who manufactures it so crappy. It's the distributor who brings it over here and then lies to his customers and tell them that it's as good as the InStroke, right? And it's the dealers who buy from those distributors who pass on that lie, some of them knowingly, some of them innocently. All of that contributes to less sales for me of these. So every sale of this robs me of sales and reputation of this. Now, here's the other problem. When I had InStroke, I would routinely get people calling me, telling me that they had an InStroke case that needed to be fixed. And I would say, well, tell me about it. What happened? Well, the handle ripped off, you know. Can't believe that. And I would say, okay, describe the case to me. Where did you buy it? Who did you buy it from? Come to find out, it's not an InStroke case. And in some cases, and this is a really good one right here, in some cases, the dealer that sold him the case went one step further with the lie and said, this case is made by InStroke, just a different name right here. It's all in the same factory. So the customer's thinking, oh, great, I'm getting kind of an off-brand InStroke, but it's still an InStroke. I'm just getting it cheaper. Then when the handle breaks and the dealer's like, hey, man, you know, go back to InStroke. Guy calls me up and he's like, hey, your case broke. Are you going to take care of this? It says on your website that you warranty them. And I have to break the guy's heart by telling him that it's not an InStroke. So when you guys think that knockoffs like this don't matter, when you guys think that it's just, oh, everybody copies everybody and I should just you know, lay down and let consumers decide for themselves, you know, they'll figure it out. Consumers will figure it out. They know what's up. No, people. You don't know what's up. You don't. Because the only way for you to find this stuff out is for people like me to stand up and tell you about it. And some of you are like, well, that just really looks bad from John to do that. You know, he's just knocking his competition. He's afraid of his competition. You know, he's just bad-mouthing everybody. Yeah, I am. And you know why I can badmouth them? Because I can do shit like that where I can just pull the fucking handle off. You got it? That's why I can badmouth. Because I can do stuff like this and just rip that right off like it's nothing. That's why I can badmouth. Because the people who make the knockoffs, they don't give a shit about you, the customer. They don't. They don't give a shit about you, the customer. And a lot of the dealers out there, they don't give a shit about you either. All they care about is, how much money can I make when I turn this product? How much money can I make? If it breaks, I'll find a way to pass it off to somebody else. You know? That's what they think. They have no loyalty. They have a lot. Okay, let me back up there. There are very good dealers in the billiard industry, some of them. They're a minority, but there are some very good dealers in the billiard industry who care about quality. They care about providing a quality product with a warranty to their customers. They care very, very much about their reputation, you know, and making sure that no customers are ever mad at them. They give full money-back guarantees on just about everything they sell. And they really bend over backwards to make sure their customers are happy. Those are the dealers I like to sell to. Because we back those dealers up. We back all of our dealers up. But we're extra happy to back up the dealers who remain loyal to us and loyal to quality. Loyal to originality. You know, those dealers who refuse, even though they can make a few more bucks in profit on an El Cheapo case, they refuse to sell shit to their customers. And dealers who sell shit to their customers, who know it's shit, you decide for yourselves. You guys have seen what I just showed you on that case. You decide for yourselves. So, moving on, okay? Talking about innovation versus copying and knockoffs, okay? This is, as you know, you guys that know me, you know that we have a line of cases we call the rugged cases. I started this about 4 or 5 years ago or so, and it just kind of grew into a thing. At first, it was just going to be a low-end line for another company that I was developing as a prototype, and that kind of didn't go when I was still working for someone else, so I just kind of put it on the back burner for a little while. And I ended up having 4 extra people in my shop that the other company told me, well, why don't you just go ahead and fire them? We don't need them anymore. And I said, man, I can't do that. I hired these people. I expected you to honor your end of it and, keep them working, and we'll make cases for you. And that didn't work out. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to make this line of cases. We're going to call it rugged. And that's what these people are going to do so that we'll have some work for them. And that's how the rugged cases came into existence. And so you guys know that we have this rugged cases, and we've gone through, a bunch of iterations on them. We've gone through handles and straps and D-rings and every part of the case where we thought it was real strong and realized we need to make it even stronger, even tougher. Well, now here we are 4 years later, 5 years later, and I'm starting to see knockoffs of the ruggeds out there. So I'm starting to see let me see here. Here's one right here. I took this one apart to see how it was made. So you guys can see here, it's basically nylon over cardboard here, which, I want to say something about that. That in itself is not a big deal, to use this kind of cardboard in here. This type of cardboard and the type of fiberboard that we use is actually a decent material for doing what we're doing here, okay? So I took this case apart. I wanted to see how it was done, how well it was made or how shitty it was made. And some parts of it are pretty strong, surprisingly, and other parts of it were completely weak, like these handles came off and stuff like that. Now this part, actually surprisingly strong. So something I can learn from that if I decided I was going to build cases like this with cardboard on there. But the point of it is that here's a case. Also, the interior was super shitty on this. I don't even know where it's at. But here's a case that looks like our rugged. It has a similar look to it, but it's nowhere near as good. So this one I think was actually $150 when ours was like $200 or $175 or something like that. And the difference is that you could buy this one and within a year it would be broken somewhere, and you could buy ours and have it for years and years and years without anything breaking. And if anything did break, you have a lifetime warranty. But when somebody's out there, like this was I think, like say $150 and the dealer could buy it for $75. So if you're out there in front of somebody, why would you want to sell them a $200 case where you get less discount when you could sell them this one, and you could tell them, hey, this is just as good as the JB case, and they walk away, man, and you're probably, you're just hoping you're never going to see them again. And you just made 100% profit on there. You made, you paid $75, you made $150, less shipping or whatever. But you see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of dealers out there, who go for that. And when those dealers get these cases, they're not pulling them apart and testing them and making sure that they're good for their customers. They don't care. All they care about is the bucks. They don't care about that. So that's why I have to stand here and do this, so that you guys start to understand all the different things that go into making a case that are really important, so that when you see a knockoff, when you see one that looks like our case, and it's a lot cheaper than our case, there's probably not any real way to make that case as strong as our case without putting the same amount of time and effort into it. And material. Sometimes it's even a lack of material. In other words, if they did make it as good as our case, then it would probably have to sell for the same price or even more, depending on their structure, for everybody in that little chain to make their money. It would probably have to sell for more than our case if it were in fact the same quality level. So when you see one that's a knockoff and it's a lot cheaper than ours, that's because it's a lot cheaper in the build. So when a dealer out there tells you, oh, this case is perfect for you, it's great, it's strong, it's just as strong as a JB, they're either deliberately lying to you, or they're ignorantly lying to you. And in my mind, if a dealer doesn't care enough to find out if the case is really strong and really protective, then, you shouldn't be dealing with him. So it sounds like I'm really ragging on dealers here, and I want to reiterate that there's a lot of good dealers out there, okay? A lot of the people we deal with, we feel are really upstanding people. And that's part of why I do this now. Back when I owned InStroke, I didn't have that choice. I didn't have that luxury of being able to pick and choose my dealers. We had to make a certain amount of money, and we had to have those dealers, and we had, I'm not going to mention names, but we had to have that distributor here, and we had to have that distributor here, and, that distributor was worth, $50,000 a year. This distributor was worth $100,000 a year. And so we had to just suck it up that they were going to sit there and sell copies of our cases right alongside our cases. And believe me, it pissed us off, right? And it pissed me off most. It especially pissed me off when I had to go to meetings with these people, and I had to sit there, sometimes in their showroom, surrounded by I'm trying not to cuss here, surrounded by the copies of my own cases. Can you imagine that? I'm sitting there trying to work out an order and work out marketing and everything with these people, and right there on the wall behind me, or even in front of me, is 10 or 15 models of knockoffs of my product. Does any of you, did any of you, can you conceive in your mind how hurtful that is? How disrespectful that is? I mean, Jesus Christ, couldn't they at least have said, hey, John's coming, why don't we get these knockoffs out of here, so at least that's not right in his face while he's in the conference room? So when it comes back to why I made the rule on Open Billiards Market that I don't want to see any more case knockoffs on there, that's part of the reason. That is psychologically part of the reason, because I am just sick and tired of seeing these people ripping off people like myself who go out of our way to innovate. We go out of our way to build tough and strong and durable and pretty cases. We go out of our way to guarantee those cases for life. Jack Justice guarantees his cases for life. I'm sure Rusty Melton guarantees his case for life. He builds it so strong that I can't see how it would possibly break anywhere. But I bet if something did break, he would take care of it. But anyway, we go out of our way to do all this extra work to make these cases tough, durable, pretty, practical, protective. And along comes these assholes who just copy it just so they can coast on this design and get the money. And all of the dealers who know it, who know this, every single one of them is complicit in it. Every single one of them. All of them. Now, I'm going to mention something else. You know, this is kind of an aside here, but I get calls nearly every day. I get some kind of an email or some kind of a PM or a phone call where people want me to donate something. They want me to donate to their tournament. They want me to support their tour. They want me to sponsor them with a case or with cases. They want me to donate to their charity. You know, they want me to donate to the victims fund of somebody in an accident, or somebody had a heart attack, or somebody had a brain tumor, or somebody has cancer. They want me to donate to all that stuff. But where do they think the money comes from for me to be able to afford to donate to all these things? I donate to tours. I donate to tournaments. I donate to charity causes. I donate to victims funds. I donate to juniors. I donate to all kinds of things like this. I donate to things when people don't ask me to donate, and I don't ask for any credit for it. But the only place where the money can come from on that is by sales of these cases. When I'm making enough sales so that all of my employees are paid, so that my house mortgage is paid, my rent is paid, as long as I'm making enough money to make all that happen, well, yeah, I've got some extra here that I can donate. But do you think that these other assholes donate anything? When is the last time you saw J&J Q's, J&J, when is the last time you ever saw them sponsor a tournament? When? When's the last time you ever saw them sponsor a player or donate to a charity event? Ever? Yeah, almost never have you seen that. Never. You see other guys, some of these other distributors, you do see them putting it out there, but that's because those guys are selling a lot more and make for a lot more money and making a lot more profit, so they can afford to put some back into the billiard industry. But when you come to a guy like me and you ask me for a Q case, or you ask me for 10 Q cases for your tournament or whatever, it's a lot bigger percentage of my production and of my revenue than it is for somebody making $4, $5, $10 million a year for them to give you 10 cases that they bought from some factory in China that's a knockoff of my stuff. So the point I'm making to you is, if you guys as consumers and tournament promoters and tour operators and people wanting to help other people, if you want people like me to continue to survive in this business, then you have to be the little army out there that supports us. You have to be the ones that say to knockoffs, we're going to support JB Cases. We're going to support Jack Justice. We're going to support Rusty Melton. You know, we are going to support all these little guys out there who make up this industry before there are no more people like me and all you've got is generic shit. Think about that for a second. All right, I'm going to get a drink of water. You guys still there? I don't have any idea how many people are watching this. Feel free to say something if you guys can still see me here. I can't even tell how many people are watching this. Okay. Whew. Am I live? Okay, cool. So you guys can still see me okay? All right, good. So now, I want to talk a little bit about a couple cases that I've done because, back on this thread on, if any of you guys go to Open Billiards Market and you go on Facebook and you go to the info Open Billiards Market information group, you'll see a big conversation that I started about my rule, and one of the things in there is somebody says, well, what about J Flowers cases? What about GTF cases? So we're going to go back up a little bit and talk about those cases because there's a couple things I want to clear up. When somebody says, well, you copied these guys and aren't you guilty of copying too? So let's do that real quick. So number one, this right here is a GTF case, and the look of it looks very much like the old Fellini cases, for those of you who know what a Fellini case is. It also looks like a Ron Thomas. It looks like it's George. It looks like a Sean case. It looks like a Kelly case, for example, to name several different brands that use the same look. And for a long time, a lot of us thought that Bob Hempel at Fellini was the guy that came up with this basic design. But actually, as I found out later, Ernie Gutierrez of Gina, he did it in the 60s. Gordy Hart of Viking, he did it in the 60s. And before that, there were several other makers. These are basically this style of case. As far as I can tell, the earliest pictures I've seen have been like from the of items that are thought to have come from the 1700s with this style of case with upholstered ends like this, a slip cover like that, so it slips over and it forms a flush body here. So the point of it is this genre, this is what I call a genre of case. I don't know exactly what it would be called, but I call it a slip cover. And that's because the cover slides on, kind of a friction fit like that. I call it a slip cover. So I was asked in 2008 if I would take a stab at doing this style of case. And I thought about it, because it's iconic as a case. And I thought, you know what? Enough people have done this type of case. The guy who I thought at the time, Bob Hempel, Fellini, the name of his cases are Fellini, right? I don't know why he named them that. I guess it just sounds more exotic if it's an Italian name. But anyway, that guy had been out of case making at that time for like 15 years or something, 13, 14, 15 years. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? He's been done a long time. He's not coming back. All these other dudes out there have started making that style of case. So it's kind of public domain at this point. I'm not going to be hurting Bob by making this case. And I'm not going to be taking sales away from him. Now, keep in mind, I thought that Bob Hempel was the originator of this style of cue case, not this genre of case itself, but just adapted for cues. I thought he was the guy that did it. So I said, sure, I would love to do that. I would love to see how well I can do with this style of case. But I said to the guy giving me the contract, I said, but I want the freedom to do it the way that I want to do it. I want to bring my own ideas to this. I want to, make sure that I put the protection in this case that I want, and I want to try to figure out how to build a better case. So to that end, all the Fellini cases, for example, have a latch on the front. I decided that I was going to make this case where it was a friction fit so that it doesn't need a latch. So that's why I made it where it's fabric covered right here, and there's a little bit of foam rubber in here, so when it goes on, it compression fits like that. Listen. Now, some of the Fellini cases, some of the It's George will also make that popping sound when they do it. Some won't. Ours do it every time because the lids fit like that. So the other thing I did was I added padding inside. You can't really see it on this, but there's padding right here in between the parts, and there's padding at the bottom so that the cue is held the same way it is in our other cases, and it's snug. So instead of rattling around, it's a nice snug fit, padded fit, so it protects the cues. The other thing I did was I made this part right here, I made it all even and nice and pretty, symmetrical. I put a different piece right in the center here, so that piece could also be taken out and used, you know, and people could put their names in and different things there like that. Somebody coming in? Oh, Matthew's coming in. So there's a lot of little things I did here. And the other thing I did was I made the bottom stronger on these, so the bottoms wouldn't tear out of them. You know, that used to happen to some of these cases. So basically what I did, yes, I'll be at the expo. What I did was I basically overhauled the case. So I retained the basic look of the case, but I overhauled it into what I think is truly a better case. And that case right there, this one right here, has been around the world with me several times. And it is, what is it? It's 10 years old now. It's 10 years old. Take a look at it. This was, by the way, the very first one that we did. I take that back. It wasn't the actual first one because we had to play around and practice a little bit with them, but it was the first complete one where I said, this is it, let's build them. So I'm doing YouTube Live, Matt.
Sweet.
So
I just want to give you a heads up. We're supposed to be having like severe weather come through.
okay.
So keep an eye out.
All right. I don't care. If I can weather the storm of Facebook, I can weather the storm here. So,
All right. See you tomorrow.
So guys, so D-Mal says, will you be at the expo? Yes, I'll be at Super Billiards Expo. James, you said you were always told you get what you pay for. You know, unfortunately, in today's world, the thing is that people don't really understand what they're paying for. You know, so a lot of people they don't really have a good feeling for what real value is. And then if the seller or the dealer is making them all kinds of promises, you know, like claims, they think that, you know, if they pay $150 for a case, that it ought to be really strong. And I'll be honest with you, if you pay $150 for a pool cue case, it ought to be very, very strong, especially if it's a mass-produced case. You can go into the sporting goods stores. I'm kind of going off track here a little bit, but you can go into the sporting goods stores and you can find rifle cases, for example, that are the same size as butterfly cases or bigger, and those things are made super strong. Now, they're made, you know, in the tens and hundreds of thousands of pieces. These are made by giant factories with a lot of money and for big corporations, and they can afford to do things in such a bulk. They buy their material in it's so much cheaper than we can buy it for, and so on and so on. They have computer sewing machines that do most of the sewing. You know, like their stuff is laid out. the computer sewing machine comes down the head and it does everything. You know, they've got like 10 cases in a row going. But the point I'm making to you though is that for $50, for $100, you can get something that is sewn military grade in strength, where you can't pull it apart. So there's no real reason why a consumer should pay $150 and not get at least the handles to be super strong, you know, at the very least, and not have them fall apart and fall off, you know, and the interior to be protective, to be truly protective. There's no reason for that because those things are actually easy to do and they don't cost a lot of money to do them. Not a lot more money, you know. Would it kill a distributor if they had to pay $2 more per case? Would it? No, it wouldn't. Would it kill you if you had to pay $10 more for that case? It wouldn't. But they don't want to do that, you know? They don't want to do it. It's just they accept whatever the factory gives them, and as long as there's not too many complaints, you know, then they just accept it. And if there's a complaint, they throw that case away. They send the guy a new one. If they even do that, like some companies, like J&J and something, you know, you buy it, it's yours. So if it breaks a day after you get it, sorry, you're out $150. Anyway, so you see on this case, you know, the things that I did to innovate on it, right? Well, here, for example, where is it? Oh, here. So I wanted to go further with this. I wanted to see how far can we go with this. And here's an example of a case that is the first of its kind in the whole world. Nobody before us had ever done what I'm about to show you. You see all the tooling on here? Watch this. You guys have any idea how tough that is? You don't. I know you don't have. I know that you don't understand how hard that is to do the tooling like this, so symmetrical, so perfect, by hand, all the way around the case. Tooling over the seam. Nobody ever did that. Not Fellini, not Viking, not Ron Thomas, no one, until we did it. And even after that, nobody did it, you know? Yes, there's some new designs in my head. There's new things that we're going to do. So the point that I'm making to you is, I want to show you guys something else. Check this out. That is leather on the end. This is a leather end cap right here. You can find a video on my channel where I show you how to work the leather end caps and how I do it. But these are actually laminated leather end caps, also a first in the world. That's the difference between copying, knockoff, making a knockoff, and innovating. Taking what was before and turning it into something better, you know? Something that yeah, it has the look. It has a little bit of the look of something else, but it's actually a better product, not an inferior product. So, yes, there's people out there, if they want to knock me, they can call this a knockoff and say, well, you know what? Fuck you, Barton. Fuck you, John Barton. You're just a hypocrite, John Barton, because Fellini made these cases back in the 70s and you're just knocking them off for profit. Well, yeah, it's a knockoff because I started with the platform that Fellini was working in, keyword was working in, is was not working in when I started, so I wasn't stepping on his toes, and I turned it into something better than he had ever built. Every single Fellini case that's ever been made, there's never been a single one that's better than this. There's prettier ones. This is a simple black Napa leather. So there's some very nice, iconic, pretty Fellini cases out there. There's never been a better one than this for protecting your cues, the way it works, everything else. So the difference between the type of knockoff that I banned from Open Billiards Market and the type of knockoff that I'm holding in my hand is better product, not stepping on toes, attribution. When I brought these out, I made a video, and I've said it many times, I gave credit to Bob Hempel. And later, when I learned that Bob was not the originator of this style, I started giving credit to Gina, Ernie Gutierrez, and to Viking, to Gordy Hart and Nancy Hart for coming out with this. So the difference is when you have a good maker, that maker doesn't hesitate to give credit wherever he found the inspiration, and he wants the world not only to experience the things that he made that he thinks are better and are make a better product, he wants the world to go to the other guy that inspired him and say, go look at his stuff. Go look at his stuff. Go look at what they did. That's the difference. Now, I said that this case is better than anything that Fellini ever did. But you know what? Fellini did damn good cases. They built damn good cases. So they already set the bar at a certain level, and I had to sit down and think about, how do I get over that? How do I raise that bar? If I'm going to jump into this genre of cases, how do I raise the bar so that the next guy coming behind me has to look at this and say, well, what can I do to make it better? You know, someday I'm not going to be around. Someday, we're going to be out of business probably, and we might not be making these anymore. And someone's going to come along and they're going to say, those GTF cases, those are pretty neat. Maybe we should make them. And hopefully, when that happens, the consumers then will be getting a case that's at least as good as this or better. So anyway, that's the GTF cases. DMAO 19, your question is, do we still sell or make them? Okay, I would need to back up. Roy Malott at IndyQ, he was the instigator for me to make these cases. It was his idea, and he paid for the initial tooling and everything, the molds to get them done. And so we do still make them, but very little, just because we don't really have time. But we really can't make them for sale for anyone else until such time as Roy decides, that he's done with the business or he retires. That's when, I will, if we decide to make them in a bigger way, that's when I will go back and start making them, for general sale. But right now, if you want to get a GTF case, you really have to go through Roy Malott. He's got a lot of them in stock. So, head over to his website, indyq.com. I think you can get there with gtfcases.com as well. If I remember, I think that's the website. Okay, so good. That's the Fellini style, right? Now, I want to show you guys one more thing. I'll be right back, okay? Okay, so one more thing on the Fellini style, okay? So Fellini never put any pockets on the cases. As far as I know, they never did. But It's George, I think, was the first case maker who made this style of case, this kind of slipcover style, where he put pockets on the case. So naturally, I was also asked, to put pockets on them. Then Ron Thomas came after It's George, and he put pockets on. And those are really the only two case makers that I know of that did this style of case with pockets. So it came down to, what am I going to do to be different for the pockets? So I decided that I was going to add a little bit of decoration here, and I was going to make this in two pieces for the production, so we could use two pieces of leather instead of one, and create a pocket. Well, look at that. I've been looking for that for a long time, my Steve Lomax piece. So we made a pocket, but here's what I did. Check this out. This pocket is sewn to the body all the way around here. Now, the way that George did it, and I can show you a George in a moment, but the way that George did it is they just sewed the leather directly to the body, which means that the pocket would get stressed out, and often it would tear. It would, start to tear right there sometimes. I mean, it was sewn pretty tough, so it didn't happen all the time. But sometimes, and the pockets would get kind of out of shape sometimes. And I decided what I would do to make it stronger is I would put a piece of cardboard there covered with fabric and then sew that directly to the body so it provides a better base of support and makes it much harder here to tear this off. So in that way, I made the pocket much stronger right there. And then we added an extra little bit of support right here. This is practical and decorative, okay, to protect the zipper so that the zipper doesn't get impacted as much and will resist tearing. So that right there is an improvement. And then this pocket up here, I made that where the zipper comes up around, as you can see. Same thing inside. Inside we have it sewn all the way, and it's also riveted down here, by the way, that you can't see it. But here, it makes it easy to get in there and see everything in the pocket. And there you go. So these are just a couple little things that I did that I wanted to make a distinction between the It's George and the Ron Thomas and, give it our own spice and our own flavor right there. So there's that case. And then other things that we did construction-wise, we changed the way these are made so that these don't stress right there. So they're not easy to break. Now, this one, we changed it where this is this direction. So when you wear it on your shoulder, all the stress is going this way instead of pulling against the rivets. So we did that. Now, the beginning, when I did it the other way, and I found out quickly that was the wrong way, so I changed it, made a better case. But that is, an example of innovation on a genre versus cheap-ass knockoffs, Okay, I know that this is going a long time. I'm not sure how long we've been going right now, an hour and 44 minutes. Do you guys have any questions for me for a minute before I launch into something else? Because I got a lot more stuff to cover. I know this is probably boring, but a lot of this stuff has been on my mind for a long time, and it's really kind of cathartic for me to get it out, and just say it. One of the things that bothers me about our world today, the whole thing, everybody, is this idea This idea that we're never supposed to talk bad about our competitors. We're never supposed to talk bad about other people in the industry. And I think that's bullshit. I think, why do you call it competition? Why is it called competition instead and not cooperation if you can't compare yourself to a competitor when you're selling a product? Why are you in business? Are you in business so that you can hold up two products and say, you decide which one's better? Here. Well, you know what? That would be great. That would be fantastic if consumers had the opportunity all the time to be able to sit there and compare two products and get the knowledge and have, the leatherworking knowledge and the construction knowledge to really, really look at them and to be able to pull on them and try to tear them apart and try everything out. That'd be great if they could do that, but they can't. They can't. So are manufacturers supposed to depend on consumers to do this for them, to do all this testing and product dissection and product examination? Are we supposed to depend on third parties to do this sort of thing for us? That would be great if there were actually third parties that I could send my product to, like Consumer Reports, for example, that would keep everybody honest, to some degree. I would love it. I'd send my products there and I'd say, tear them apart, test the hell out of them. Tell me what I need to do. I'll take my lumps because the next iteration would be better. But like I said, you guys don't have that. Consumers don't have that. So in my mind, one good use of the internet is that I can stand here, right here, and I can do exactly what I'm doing. And any of my competitors, any of my colleagues can do the same thing. Be my guest. They can do the exact same thing as what I'm doing right here. This case here, I just grabbed it out of here, but this case, I just grabbed it out of the box. This one you can see is torn up right here. You guys see that? So when we made it, somebody had a bad sewing day, One of our sewers just didn't really, get it, and she sewed everything too close to the edge, which frayed everything and it didn't catch. Great. We gave the guy a new case, so no big deal. Eventually, I'm going to throw this away or use it as storage or harvest the interior or whatever. But the point I want to show you is this. You can come to my booth at Super Billiards Expo. You can pick any case on the wall and you can try to tear the handles off. Did you hear what I said, Internet? Go to my booth, pick any case, go like this, and try to tear the handles off. Reach in there, pull it like, I'm gonna hurt my neck if I do that. Try. Because that's what I make my people do in my shop. Randomly, I go on camera and I say, pull that case out of the box right there and try to tear the handles off. And they'll have two people One person holds the case, the other one's pulling on the handle, trying to tear it apart. They know what I expect. So they build them tough. These are not the things that you get from knockoffs. Here's a knockoff. Right here. I'm not going to say the brand. Here, the zipper's already broken, you see. I'm not going to say the brand, so I'm not going to open it so you can see the brand. But this one, this particular case was made to look exactly like our case, right? Almost identical to our rugged. Do you have one case you always use, or do you use different cases all the time? You mean for that test, D-Mal? For that test I just did? Dude, I just pulled that case randomly out of a box. You know, if you want to pick any of the ruggeds on the wall back there, you tell me which case to grab, and I'll grab it and do it. And I'll try to do the same thing right on camera live. You tell me any of those rugged cases on the wall right there, go ahead and tell me, and I'll do it. Anyway, this is a knockoff of our rugged case. It just came out. So we pulled the handle off easily. They did this differently. Instead of using high quality nautical rope like we do it, they used a plastic piece in here with some foam rubber around it so that it sort of has the cushy feeling of ours, but it's so thin and flimsy that there's no way that it's even comfortable in your hand for more than a few seconds. And then it's also super weak right here, so it just tears right off. Here, same thing. Easily torn off. Here, the zipper on here couldn't even resist being twisted. It just tore right out. I'm going to cover up the name on there, but basically, if you look here, you guys can't really see this. This is not sewn in a way to prevent the zippers from coming apart. So they come apart. The bottom here, I'm not going to show you that because it's got the name of the case on it, but it's weak, you know. Here, let me see if I can get it out where you guys can see it. So you got like a piece of wood here and a piece of like a flimsy piece of rubber on there. But here, check this out. This is going to trip you out even more. When you look in there, I need to get some light so you guys can see it. Hold on. Check this out. Look how high up that is inside. That's a good 4 or 5 inches up inside there. Okay? Now, check this out. This is what makes up the bottom of the case right here. So, if I take this and I put it up against that, it doesn't reach all the way to where that case ends up in here. Okay? This is about 3 inches right here. This is about 4 or 5 inches up in here, which means your cues, when they go in, they've got about at least 1 inch or 2 of empty space before they get to this part of it. So the distributor who bought these, they don't even know. They don't even know that the manufacturer is building cases that are actually dangerous for the cues that that are going to go in it. They don't know it. So they write on their website, that the case has all these protective features and this, that, and the other, but they don't even know. They don't have a fucking clue how this is built inside. But yet, they're going to pass it on to the customers with the idea that it's just as good or just as strong as JB Rugged cases. And that, my friends, is a travesty. It's horrible. Now, I'm going to say something. These guys that did this case, these are good guys. They tried to buy cases from me a couple of years ago. They had actually, I had sold them a lot of cases at one time. But we came to a point, where I couldn't make the cases at the price point that they wanted profitably. I couldn't do it. And I would rather focus on quality, sell less cases, but get more money for each case so that we have the resources to do what we need to do, rather than work my people crazy. And at the end of the month, we barely break even, but we delivered all the cases that they want. And then if the quality's not there because we're rushing and everything, I'm still on the hook with a lifetime warranty for the cases. So it makes more sense to me to not sell to big distributors at prices that make it really difficult for us to put the quality that we need to put into it, and be able to support those cases for a lifetime. So, no, I actually now have a case of my own now. I don't have it here because it's in my wife's car, but she made me a case for my birthday that is so super cool. It's got my tattoos on it, her tattoos. It's got my kids, information on it. It's really, really cool. You can see it in one of my other videos. But yeah, I was kind of taking different cases, and I didn't actually have a case of my own because a lot of times people want to buy my personal case, which is another reason why she made this for me like that, so that I would never sell it. And that's happened to me many times over the years. I make a case for myself. People want to buy it, and then they want me to sign it, and I do. And, there's probably like 5 or 6 cases out there that people have that were my personal case that I made for myself. But this one that I have now, I will never sell it. It'll never ever be sold. So nobody can get that one. But before that, I was just, if people sent in a case and it had a little something wrong with it or something, then I would grab that case and use it. Most of my cases, that I was using would be like, defective or something. Or the black one here, this black one, I use that a lot sometimes when I go to the pool room, just when I want one cue. This one actually holds my wife's cue, which Greg will like this. This is a Zen, by the way. For those of you that are cue nuts, with Cocobolo. Put it under the light so you can see it. So that's hers. Okay, so where was I at? Okay, so let's continue now and talk about J Flowers. Okay, so that was the other one that people tried to hit me with, was the J Flowers cases. Now, keep in mind when we started talking 2 hours ago, remember I said something about J Flowers, JEFQ cases? So the original brand that J Flowers was the person who was out there selling cases and promoting them. What nobody knew, or very few people knew at the time, was that Jay wasn't actually making the cases. He was having the cases made at a leather shop in Tampa, owned by a woman named Nora Van Horn. And so Nora would put her stamp on it, but nobody knew what it meant. Nobody knew that it was actually NVP or NVH and stood for Nora Van Horn. So that was a mystery for years that nobody could figure out. And I guess the few people who knew outside of Jay, they weren't talking. But anyway, the cases, even though the brand was JEF Q case, that stood for Jasper E Flowers Q case with a Q. That was the brand. Well, as I told you before, owning one of those cases was the catalyst for me getting into the case business, because unfortunately my Q fell out of one and I decided to rebuild it, and so here we are. Years later, I was out in Vegas and I was at a booth, our booth, and I'm standing there and the tables are right next to us, and an old guy is like standing there with his cue, and he's not up, so he kind of just stands there and he turns around and he kind of looks at the cases on the wall and he walks over, and so I wanted to give him the pitch, hey, you know anything about in-stroke cases? And he goes, no, I don't really know anything about them. And I said, well, let me tell you about them. And he goes, well, I do know something about cases. I used to make cases. And I said, really? I said, is it anything I might have heard of? And he goes, yeah, I used to make these cases. They were JEF cases, Flowers cases. Maybe you heard of them. I used to make them for guys like Buddy Hall and stuff like that, And I was like, to me, that was like meeting case making royalty. At that time, I didn't know anything about the story, the actual origin story or anything. I didn't know that he wasn't the case maker, the actual case maker. So to me, he was the man at that point, and we got to talking a little bit, and I said to him, just offhand, I said, Jay, do you think it would be okay if at some point in the future I made a line of cases that use some of your designs and kind of, combined with what I do here, and we make kind of a modern version to pay tribute to the Flowers style, to make sure? And he was like, yeah, that'd be no problem. You can do that. And then after we left, my life kind of fell apart for a little bit, and I didn't get back in touch with him right away, and then he died. So many years go by between then and like 2008, 2009, and I finally get back into case making in 2007. And in 2009, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that project. I'm going to do that tribute line for Jay Flowers. And originally, I wasn't going to call it J. Flowers. Originally, I was going to call it something else and then just do the advertising and the marketing and call attention to Jay Flowers and, say this is the inspiration, that's where it came from, and make sure that the attribution was given, that people understood where it came from. But then I started thinking about it, and I was in China at the time, and I started thinking, you know what? What had happened was, at that very same time period, there were people in China making Witten copies, and they had actually taken the Witten name and trademarked it in China, and they were making Witten cases with the Witten logo. They were 1-to-1 identical to Witten. There were little bitty differences, right? But for a normal consumer, like I could see the differences, but a normal consumer wouldn't have been able to see the differences if he wasn't really familiar with Witten cases. Like if those cases came to the United States at that time, the people here who were Witten, really liking Witten cases, they would have been able to spot the differences and known that those cases were not made by Witten. But the customers in China and Taiwan and Japan, they didn't know that those were fake, like counterfeit Witten cases. Remember earlier we talked about counterfeits? These cases were absolute counterfeits. Now, the trademark was trademarked in China. the people making the cases did own the Witten trademark. They essentially stole the trademark. Now, I have to tell you, that's Witten's fault. That's everybody's fault who doesn't protect their trademark in different countries. A lot of the small guys, they just don't know that they need to do that. And so these guys stole the Witten trademark, and they were making Witten copies. So I thought to myself, how can I protect the J. Flowers name? How can I protect it from anybody else taking this name? And my idea was to name it J. Flowers Tribute Cases. So by doing that, I thought I can put that right in the trademark, and then no one else can just take the name J. Flowers and make cases. So they couldn't coast on the popularity of the design and then just steal the name and take it. So that's how I came up with the J. Flowers Tribute line. And I want to show you guys something here. Let me find it. So this is a J. Flowers case. Okay, it's a 1x2. And this is how it was made. So you can see it's kind of elegant. It's pretty thin leather here. It's this saddle leather, but it's pretty thin. But you guys can see the design on there. You can see it on the back. See how it was made here. Here, everything, right? And you see here, this says, it's real hard to tell right there, but you can see it says JEF. And then let's see if the slide is still on now. It says JEF, and then if you turn it up here, you'll see it says NVH, Nora Van Horn. So that's an original JEF case right there. I had J. Flowers' original case, his own personal case, that I traded to somebody from Tampa, but unfortunately that case was lost in a lost luggage deal. So somebody out there's got it. But anyway, that's the case. All right. Now, remember I told you earlier that the tubes come out. So in here you could just reach in. Normally you can just reach in and easily take these tubes out. That's a little bit harder, but they will come out. So these tubes will come out, and you can see it's kind of felt in there and torn up. But that's the case, right? So, and you can see that it has two snaps on here on each side. So, and you see the lid already kind of fell off, so it comes off pretty easily. But yeah, that's the case, right? So what I did was I wanted to make this into a modern style case, and this is what I came up with. So I came up with a case like this. So you can see here that it pays tribute to the design a little bit on there, but there's not really a lot of similarity here, you know, other than kind of a little bit of the look. But it's basically just the genre, the Western style tooling, you know. But the case itself is very different. It's got the modern pockets on here, the way that it's sewn on, the zippers, you know, everything, the way that the handles are done here, all of that. And then, you know, the handle coming over like this. And then, of course, it's also taller to accommodate larger cues and so on. So, and also the back, you know, sewn back, for example, on these. They don't all have a sewn back, but some of them do. But anyway, the point is that I didn't make this case right here – is not a knockoff in the way that we think of knockoffs to this case. They're very different. So the only thing here on this case that has a similarity, a real similarity and appealing, is this design right here. This tooling pattern right there is similar, right? But even then, you can see I changed it up, and the whole point of that was to make a modern tribute with attribution, with credit to Jay Flowers and later to Nora Van. I always have to mention Nora Van Horn, because I don't like it when somebody in the background is never mentioned and never gets the credit, because Nora actually, as it turns out, she's the one that actually did the real designs and the real drawings and planning out everything, and then of course also all the building and tooling. So here's another one. Here's another version of that we did, and this one we just repaired the zippers on it. So got to send it back. This one is vintage 2011 right here. So we decided that we were going to put numbers on them so that people could see where it came from. So that's the whole point of the Jay Flowers story on there, was I just wanted to make sure that Jay Flowers' name wasn't forgotten. And I felt like that the best way to do that and protect the name was to actually make a case and actually put a brand on it, so that it would be possible to make it where someone couldn't just come in and ruin the name. Now, I have to say that I probably failed at that because I did something that turned out pretty bad, and I trusted a Chinese manufacturer, Johnson, to register the name in China with the idea that they would register it in China and I would register it everywhere else, and I would own it for the rest of the world, me and Sterling Gaming, and then Johnson would own it for China. And what happened is that Johnson took the Jay Flowers name and they started putting it on all kinds of case designs that have nothing to do with the original Jay Flowers style. And they're, kind of disseminated out into the world. But, at the end of the day, at least it's just them that own the name and not, somebody else. And the Jay Flowers name, and now Nora Van Horn, is going to continue into perpetuity where nobody will ever forget who pioneered that kind of a style of case, at least that style more in the public consciousness, because I want to say that throughout the years with my research, I found, lots of other cases that seem to predate that style even. So it's possible that Jay himself saw that style of case being made by somebody else. A lot of leather workers out there. It's very possible that some random leather worker made a case and Jay saw it and decided to make pool cue cases. His story was that he learned leatherworking in prison, and when he got out, because he's a pool player, he started building cases. That could be true. I'm not totally sure on that, but the point of it is that at least in my world, we think of Jay Flowers as the one who brought that style of case out in a bigger way because he traveled to tournaments and he gave cases to players and so on. So it was pretty cool, And then for me, as a case maker, and after having met Jay and our conversation that we had, I just wanted to make sure that I did something to preserve that legacy. So that's how the Jay Flowers cases exist. So for those of you out there, who want to knock me and say, well, look, you just copied J Flowers. Well, there you go. There is your examples right there. And so that you can understand the difference between making a knockoff and a cheap, inferior product for profit and making one for a more altruistic motive. Now I don't even promote these cases. I don't make a big deal out of them. I don't even use the J Flowers logo or that brand anymore. I do make that style of case. I call it a classic just to kind of differentiate. But we don't even push them very much. So it's not like I'm out there trying real hard to make money on that style of case because I think that it would be popular. I don't do it. It's there if people want it. We can make it. But that's a lot different than when somebody steals an iconic design and then just, goes crazy with that design, putting it on everything just about, so that because they know that the design is appealing and a big chunk of the money that they make is because of that design. So that's the next kind of knockoff, where the case itself, the platform may be decent in a way. So it's not necessarily that the case is cheaper, but it is that the case maker is definitely trying to trade on a design that someone else came up with, something that's unique to that other case maker that was unique to them. That new case maker says, you know what? I see so many people that like that design. I'm going to go ahead and steal it, and I'm going to make a bunch of cases with that design. And then if that other case maker is still living and still working, it's just unethical. It's immoral to sit there and actively steal sales away from that other case maker when you've taken the design that is most associated with that guy. I just don't think that that's right to do that. So other people did it, to some degrees. Kay Deathridge says, let me see what he says here. Kay Deathridge says, how long would it take to make one of the classic cases, or is it all depending on the leatherwork involved? The cases actually take, like a classic case, that case actually can be made in like 3 days. We can start to finish, we can get it done. Generally, though, it really takes about a week to do it because, it has to go in stages, the leather has to be tooled, then it needs to dry, and so on. But, if we really had to, from start to finish, I could do it in 3 days. That's with, kind of the classic designs that you've seen there, the tooling designs. If you look on my website, and go to the cases by name, you'll see the classic cases and you'll see all the different designs that we do. If we did a lot more leather work, a lot different design on there, then something a lot more complicated, it would, maybe take a day or two longer. Okay. So anyway, that's the J Flowers, right? So there you go. This is a Jack Justice case, and you'll notice that structurally, there's some similarities to the flowers, but this case here was an upgrade. It was better than what Jay was building back then, or what Nora was building. So Jack, he kind of made up his own style here. You'll see these little lines right here. Those little lines with the little arrowhead caps on them, and then his double lines on here. See the double lines going down here? That is really his style. He kind of made it up. And so this, and then you'll see his logo right there underneath the lid there. this case obviously, has kind of the look of the flowers, but when you really look at it, it's an upgrade to what Jay was doing. So, and then Jack turned around and on the design, he made it cleaner, he made it tighter, and he created his own style that became instantly recognizable. And then one of the things he did was he started working with a guy named Ron Ross, who's a famous saddle maker. You can look him up, Ron Ross. So between Jack and Ron, Jack created this 3-diamond design, 1 diamond on the top pocket and 2 diamonds on the lower pocket, with tooling all around those diamonds. And so Jack would do the diamonds, and then he would send the leather to Ron, or he'd send the leather over with the diamonds marked out, and Ron would do all the tooling. And then Jack would cut out the diamonds and build the rest of the case, and you'd have the case. These cases, they were instantly popular because it was a great design. The diamond shape was different than anything anybody had done up until then. And this guy, Vuri, he came on the scene, about 3 or 4 years ago or so. Maybe 5 now, I'm not sure. 5 probably. And immediately, like the very first case the guy did was a knockoff of that 3-diamond design from Jack Justice. And I mean, it was like an almost 1-to-1 knockoff. Like the tooling and everything on it was exactly the same pattern. So he stole the pattern that Ron Ross had created, even the tooling part of it. And then ever since then, he's just continued to use that design in slightly different ways. He's moved the diamonds apart a little bit. Sometimes he changes the tooling up around the diamonds, but the basic pattern, 3 diamonds, tooling all around the diamonds, and those exact diamonds, the way that they're done is Jack Justice's. Jack made that. He created that. It was all him. So that's what I mean about a knockoff, where somebody is taking the substantial look from another case maker and a living, active case maker and using it for their stuff. And even though that their stuff is not necessarily cheaper per se, and their case is, decently made. So we're not talking about like the type of knockoff that I showed you guys earlier where it's super cheap, and just crap. Even though I'm going off script here for a second, but the Vuri cases have even now, they still have their share of problems in construction. But they're not bad, they're not like super bad. They're just not as good as they could be. But anyway, this guy just basically is I don't know how many cases he's making with that design, but I mean, it seems like every other case that I see has that design. And he does make other cases. He's made a lot of beautiful cases, a lot of, really crazy designs and some cool stuff. And he does, he's got a team of graphic designers that do this, so it's not him designing. He's got graphic designers. They do something, then he directs and he tells them, change this, change that. And I'm not begrudging him that. I think that's a good idea. I do the same thing. I've got people who do that for me as well. And it works, so it's a good way to go with that and division of labor to get something out that the customer wants and be able to service a lot of customers at the same time. So I don't begrudge him that, okay? But, if anybody thinks that he's sitting there, drawing it out with a pencil and coming up with all this himself, that is not what's happening, okay? Which, makes it all the more surprising to me why that he would just invest so much time trading on this one design when he's actually got people who could come up with, they could come up with just really cool stuff, a lot of cool, they could come up with some other design that could become just as iconic, that could be used as, it becomes their signature thing. And they could do that. But instead, he wants to steal the iconic design from Jack Justice and make a significant amount of his cases using that design. And I just don't think that's cool. So that's why I banned those cases from AZ Billiards. Or I'm sorry, I apologize, I said the wrong thing, I'm getting tired. That's why I banned them from Open Billiards Market, those designs only. I didn't ban Vuri cases, and I'm going to go off script again. Vuri has had a very, very spotty record, okay? That's being nice about it, with handling issues and honoring warranties. And I turned on 2 of my good customers to him when he was getting started, and he ended up screwing them both, costing them several thousands of dollars. And since then, there's been a lot of other stories. I hear it all. People come back to me. So, for that reason, I tell people a lot of the times, just be careful with this guy. And, hopefully you're one of the ones that doesn't get screwed. So, that's a whole other issue right there. But like I said, if I were not a case maker, I would probably be leery of having Vuri cases on my website, just for the reason that it's, you just don't know what's going to happen if something goes wrong with one, whether it's going to be taken care of or not, or you're going to get yelled at, or you're going to get blocked or banished or whatever. He's done all these things to people, including sending them extremely hateful messages and rants and drunken rants and stuff like that. So, that in itself is a whole other issue. But my issue right now with him, as far as these knockoffs go, is what I said. I just don't think it's cool. It's legal, you can take the design. It's not, like I said, it's not copyrighted, there's no design patent. So it's perfectly legal to steal Jack's design and run with it and, do whatever you want with it. There's nothing, there's honestly nothing Jack can do unless he wants to go to court and try somehow to prove that particular design is so much associated with him that it's trade dress. And he might have a case there, actually. He might actually have a pretty good case. But again, it's going to cost him $5,000 just to step into the lawyer's office with any intention at all of taking it to court. Because the lawyer, he can go get a cease and desist letter, for $500. But I can tell you right now that when that cease and desist letter arrives in Indonesia, Roger might not even waste the energy to tear it up. So this is the one little thing that I can do for my colleagues and myself, is to not allow Open Billiards Market to be used as a channel for these knockoffs, whether the El Cheapo knockoffs that are just intended to milk as much money out of the industry as possible, or even when otherwise, decent and good case makers decide that they want to steal the designs from other case makers and make that a cornerstone or a big part of their production. I just don't think that's cool, and I don't think that Open Billiards Market should be a conduit for that. I don't think that something that I created to help people sell products should be used to help them sell knockoffs of my cases and my colleagues' cases. I just don't think that's right. So that's where I stand on this issue. And I hope that I hope that you guys out there watching, I hope that a lot of you agree with it, and I hope that you'll go out and do whatever you can to learn more about cases. Um, I I do, I got so many things to show you and so many things to talk about. Um, I could just go on and on for hours with this. As you can see, I'm already like 2.5 hours in. But this has basically been a 20-year ride, 25-year ride on building cases. And I built one company and I had it for 13 years, and then I sold out of my stake, and that company, InStroke, is still going. The brand is still going. And ironically enough, my old brand, InStroke, the guys that are running it now, decided that they even wanted to use me, to continue to use me as their R&D, and they turned around and copied, one of my newer models that I made. So I'll show you that real quick. And this is what's called a Mason case, and it was made because of a guy named Arnie Mason. Arnie Mason is a really fantastic leather worker. You should look him up. He specializes in fly rod fishing cases, and he made a little case that was about this big, and it was for flies. And it had rounded sides like this, kind of like this shape on it, and then an oval on the bottom. And I thought, that's a pretty cool case, the way that that's done. And then his kind of went in and envelope style in there. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I wonder if I could do that as a Q case, if I could extend it and make it bigger and make a Q case out of it. And that's how the Mason case, so that's where the name came from, was born. I worked on it until I figured out how to set it up so that we could build a case that is a semi-hard case, but it can be a hard case too. We can put tubes in here and make it hard. But the point of it is that this is an actual new design for Q cases. Before I did it, nobody did it. Nobody. As far as I could tell, I've never seen a case done, a pool Q case done this way. Never. And so I created this, and then what do I see last year? I see that InStroke has made a version of this case. They copied it. And so, that copy of this case is barred also on Open Billiards Market. So the original InStroke cases, the designs that I came up with, the ones that they're still selling, perfectly fine. But if they're going to copy my designs, I'm going to treat them like everybody else and say, no, you can't sell it on my marketplace. So that's what that's all about. That's a pretty cool case. Here's another one. All right, I'm getting a little tired, but I want to show you guys something else here that's pretty cool. This is, I just want to kind of, like I said, is when I go into a genre of cases, when I start to do something, I really want to try to make it better, in some way, at least how I feel is better. So this is a really good case right here. It's super sturdy. This is a Rusty Melton case. And I mean, this thing is solid. It's solid. It's very well done. It's just, it's one of these pieces that you just know this is a 1,000-year case. I mean, there's an archaeologist going to dig this up at some point. And the leather's really nice here. Everything's super heavy, super thick. This is a 2x2. So it can fit 2 butts and 2 shafts. It's got It's what we call an envelope because it's basically a pancake style, and it kind of has a flap that comes in like an envelope flap. Sheepskin inside. The shafts go down on the side of the tubes here with this particular model. So two shafts and two butts. And, you know, I mean, this is a fantastic case, right? It's a fantastic piece of leather working and construction. Just wonderful. But I want you to look at the size. Hey, sorry, Rusty, I got to say it. So, and the size is it almost has to be this way because it's, you know, it's the way that these cases are. But you look at the size on that, and then you take our case and put it up beside it, and you can see that the actual width of both of these is approximately the same. Well, what I did was I made ours where it's not quite as it's not double stitched in there, so it's not as flat on the sides, so that we could put in our actual tube inside. So that's a 2x5 inside there. So you can't really see it because of the way that I've got the lighting here, but that's an actual 2x5. And here, let's see if you guys can see it this way. Oops. Let me get that light back there. Sorry. There you go, guys. Can you see that? Anyway, it's actual 2x5. So my idea is I wanted to make an envelope, you know, that our tubes would wrap around our tubes, and it would still have, you know, this really nice kind of envelope-y feel to it. You can see the bottom, it says Lomax on there. I bought this case back actually from a customer. I saw that he had it for sale, and he had it up for sale for a pretty cheap price because he needed money real quick. So I decided to buy it back because I really like it. And it says Straight Shooting Jesse on the back right there. That's Jesse Gilbert out in California. Really, really cool dude. Very generous guy. Anyway, you know, good asset to the billiard industry. So I made it like that, you know, put the pockets on there. I got our L zipper on here. Now L zipper is another thing that I invented. And I got a magnetic latch on here. So I wanted to avoid the flap part, right, on there. And so I put our magnetic latch on there so you have an unbroken kind of, it comes around and flows right there like that. And it's really cool. And then the back on here, you know, we did this with the no stress right there, and the same thing on the bottom. And then I did kind of a belt on here, which is a departure. You know, I did this big heavy belt on there because the reason this case I actually called the Chaz model, and it harkens back to one of my mentors, Charles Clements. And so I just called it, he was real famous for doing envelope cases. So I called it the Chaz, you know, as a tribute to him. But the other thing that I did that's different than everybody else is I figured out how we could sew in the handle into the seam. So you see how that kind of flows into the seam there? And it's super tough. You know, you can pull on it. You can pull on it all you want. This is going to hurt me later. You can pull on it all you want. That's not coming out, you know. And I just thought that was a cooler way to do it, you know. So it just kind of has that flow right there without, you know, needing to put some extra stuff on here. And so yeah, we did that, and then, you know, we did some extra sewing on the bottom and stuff. And it's just that, like, every time that we go into a style of case, I try to find some way to make it better, you know, and at least better in my mind, you know, something that we do. Here's another little thing we did on this one also, by the way, is you'll notice right here there's leather all around here, and this is all padded. right there. So one of the things I wanted to do was to try to close the gap. A lot of these envelope cases, they have a gap right here, you know, where they have a big hole right there. I don't know if his does, but let's look at it. So you'll see here, this has a big hole right here, so you can look through it right there. Now, I just don't like it. I don't like that you know, extra space in there, that air that can get in there. I mean, it's not really going to do anything per se, but when there's a big hole there, to me, there's not a lot of difference between just walking around with it open like this either. You know, except that you have the flap kind of protecting it from some stuff. And honestly, guys, this is not a knock on Rusty. All right, it's not a knock in any way on Rusty. This is how envelope cases are built. For years, you know, 100 years, this is how envelope cases are built. This is traditional leather work right here. Here's one that I have from a guy named Brian Bonner. Let me find it. So this one here, this is from a guy named Brian Bonner, and he was active for a couple years, and then he stopped making cases. But again, you'll see that we have the hole in here, right through here. So his case here, he has a flap and a little dot right there, so he can put the flap right through there. And real good, you know, real good, well-constructed piece here. Flap, and he's got a little pocket right here. Now this little pocket, you know, I mean, I think that's a little bit weak compared to the rest of the case. You can see how it's losing its shape and everything there. So he could have done a better job on that, and I think he did do a better job on other cases. You know, this might have been an early one. But let's see here. It says Brian Bonner, Nittany Leather, 2009, it says on there. So he made that in 2009. So I bet that in subsequent cases he worked on that part of it and, you know, made it a little bit better. But anyway, you know, you can see that's a traditional envelope case right there. And on this one, I think, if I remember right, I think that I actually put my interior in it. Yeah, I did. See, I took his interior out and I put mine in there. So I kind of wanted to see if it would fit, and it did. And so that's when I think that's kind of when I figured, you know, I would do the same thing on ours. And so that's how you know, when we ended up doing the envelope case, those were some of the things that I looked at when doing it. So, you know, there'll be people that'll come back to me and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, this is they'll look at this. Let me put this over here. They'll look at this by Rusty, right? They'll look at this, and then they'll look at mine, and they'll say to me, oh, but look, you knocked off Rusty Melton. You know, and no, I didn't, you know. We all of us work in similar genres, you know, but we try real hard to kind of put our own spin and our own flavor on things. And you know, this is a pretty traditional kind of leather pattern here, like a belt pattern right here. But I would try hard to avoid, even though that's a traditional leather pattern that you can find on all kinds of cowboy belts and stuff, I would try to avoid copying this, you know, even though it's probably not that big of a deal. But just out of respect for Rusty, that he put out a case like this that I saw and have, I'd probably avoid doing it. You know, I'd say to the customer, if somebody came up and said, hey man, I really like that Rusty Melton case, can you make me one but with exactly that pattern? I'd say to the customer, why don't you let me play around with it and come up with a different spin on it, so that it's distinct from Rusty's. You know, it has a little bit of Rusty's flavor, but it's mostly our flavor. And then when I make it and I'm done with it and I present it, what would I say to people? I would say, hey, check this out. a customer was inspired by Rusty Melton's case, and so I did a little bit of what Rusty did, but the rest of it is our flavor. And you guys should really go check out Rusty's cases, and so you'll understand what the inspiration was. And if you're able to get on his list and buy one, you should buy one. And if you're not, maybe you would want to, like this customer, maybe you'd want to consider ours. That's what I would say, because that's how I actually feel, right? Like Rusty's case is the type of case that I would probably buy, if I was into leather cases and high-end leather stuff. Remember I told you back at the beginning that these styles of case really aren't my personal style. So, there's only a few kind of leathery leather cases that I really, really like, for me personally. And they're not always like tooled cases. But if it were, if I were into that, then from the build quality, how clean it is and everything, that's one of the guys on my list that I would want to buy. It's just that simple. And because, he's original. He does his own tooling patterns. He's an original guy. So that's what I mean, so to harp on that again, that's what I mean about inspiration and attribution, and cooperation versus theft, and a theft in the moral sense, not the legal sense. When you just look at something somebody did and you're like, I'm just going to take that and I'm going to just run with it and I'm going to make, pretty much the identical case. Maybe I'll change it up just a little bit here and there. That's theft. But when you take somebody's recipe and you turn it around and you really make it your own, that's where inspiration comes from, And all the great people who are great not only in their craftsmanship but also in their heart, don't mind telling everybody where they got it from. They don't mind saying, hey, look at this case I built. I saw Rusty Melton doing envelope cases, and I really wanted to try that genre of case, and so this is what I came up with. They don't mind saying that. They don't mind giving credit on any level for where it came from. Which brings me to the almost last thing I'm going to say. So we'll say second to last tonight, because there's a couple other little things I want to show you. Let me check my messages real quick. My wife Karen is messaging me. See what she's got to say. Oh, very cute. She's sending me a bunch of pictures of her and the kids. So, okay. So that brings me to the other thing. So some people say, where's the beef between me and Vulturi? And I'm not going to get into the bad details of it, all right? But here's one thing, right? So this zipper right here, see how this zipper comes around right there? So it starts here and it comes around right there. Now I want to show you the difference. You see this zipper on here? How that zipper stops right there? So that's it, right? And then you have to get in there and it's a little tight to get in there. Well, traditionally, if you're going to make this type of pocket where you've got 90-degree corners right here, traditionally there's been no way to make a zipper that actually comes around that corner. And that was actually one of the things that kind of stopped me for a long time from doing this type of pocket, because I just thought, well, I don't like it. I don't like that type of pocket where it's hard to get in there and you can't see anything. And it's not a knock on Rusty or a knock on Jack or any of these other guys that do it. I mean, that's the traditional way, right? That people have always done that style of pocket. But I wanted to find a way where I could make that style of pocket, but make it where it would be easier for the user to get in the pocket. And that's why I created the L zipper. And the L zipper is this. Sorry, this case keeps sliding down, so I'm going to stick it over here. Hopefully that'll work. Okay. The L zipper, as you can see this 90-degree corners? The L zipper comes around. You see this here? It comes around right there and easily makes the corner right there. So if you were to open it up, I'll show you a different one. This was my first attempt at the L zipper, by the way. Actually, what it was this was a way to make it a little cheaper. You know, this is my first thought on this, was to make it a little cheaper, was to do two zippers. One here and one here, actually. So you'll see here I have two zippers, and then it kind of makes the L. See that? And so that was the first idea, you know, for making a kind of a easier way to get into the pocket. So anyway, so I made this L zipper, right? And I even made a tutorial for leatherworker.net, and I showed everybody. I said, look, this is what I came up with. This is a new way to do this zipper for this type of pocket. Here's a video, here's a picture tutorial of all the steps of how to do it. And you guys have fun with it. And I did that because, you know, I have gotten so many good techniques from other leather workers, you know, I wanted to give something back. Well, a while later, after I, you know, had started doing this zipper, Roger, Vuri guy, showed a case where he did the zipper, and he was bragging about doing the zipper. And so I said something on there. At this point, you know, we were still friends. And I said, hey, that's really great. I feel I don't want to say vindication. What is it? I feel validated. You know, when other case makers use the techniques that I've thought of. It makes it easier for customers to use the case. And, you know, it was meant as a compliment. It wasn't meant as a knock. And the dude just goes off on me. You know, he's like, oh, I've been doing that for 20 years. And, you know, we were doing it, you know, 25 years ago on this camera bag or whatever. And I was like, dude, you weren't doing it that way because it wasn't even possible. Nobody thought of it. That's why people don't. That's why in other leatherworking, people don't do those pockets, because you can only put the zipper in one way. Nobody had sat down and figured out how to make a zipper go all the way around like I did for that type of pocket. Yeah, you know, if you have this kind of a pocket, yeah, you can bring the zipper around, see? If you have that kind of a pocket. But it's not going around the corners here. See this case? This was one we did a while back. This was like 2007. And the square corners, no zipper, because it was not possible at that time to do it. Nobody had invented it. So I invented it, right? And then you got a Vuri guy here. Sorry, Jack. And this is going to be a big mess to clean up in the morning. So you got Vuri guy right here, and he made these cases. This is a Vuri. By the way, I want to mention something else, okay, that bothers me, as long as we're on, you know, truth tonight. This case here, I don't have any light. Sorry, I should have put this camera back here where you guys could see this. But anyway, this case here is before I get into all the other stuff on there, I want to drop this on the computer. This case here, see this design? Here, put this up here where you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, that looks like a lot of tooling on there, right? So you'd think if you look at that, if you look at it, you'll think this is a lot of tooling. But actually that's all laser engraving. All of it. Everything on there is laser engraved. It's not hand carved like he tells you. It's laser engraved. Now, having said that, it looks good. You know, it's kind of interesting. It's like a tooling outline. This is like, you know, like the first step you would do when you're about to tool something. You would actually cut it with a knife, you know, and kind of do these cuts in here, and then you'll go in and sculpt it. So what he did was, you know, he just decided to just laser engrave it and then leave it at that, which is fine. It's a nice looking design, you know, and it would sell well, I think, if he just told people it was laser engraved. But instead, he tells people that it's hand tooled, and that's a lie. And, you know, that's another thing that I'm just not into, you know, is lying to people about how something is done in order to pump up the value in their mind, because obviously the value of this case shoots up if I say to you that it's hand tooled, and also if I say to you that I did the hand tooling, right? That's what he says to people, that he sits there and does all of this carving himself, and actually it's just laser engraved. But anyway, so back to the zipper here. This is an L zipper, right? So it goes around the corner, comes down, same as ours, right? Easy to get into the pocket and everything. Great. Well, I invented it. And when I said that on his thread, it wasn't to knock him or anything. It was just to say, hey, you know, I'm glad to see people doing it. And the guy just goes off on me like I was, you know, some kind of idiot, and that I was trying to take credit for something that had existed, you know, for a long time, but in fact it hadn't. There is nowhere in the world, you can't find any picture anywhere where that works. So that's the thing, man. You know, that's why I have a beef with the guy. Is if you're not even man enough, you know, or woman enough, if you're not even man enough or woman enough to give credit for something so small as that, just to say, hey, thanks, John, you know, yeah, it's working out great. You know, people love the L zipper, awesome. And then that's it. It just, you know, the river flows on, and everybody's happy, right? Instead of doing that, he decides that he's going to go off on me and try to discredit me for something that I actually, you know, put a lot of thought into, and I put some experimentation into. And, you know, I just think that that's also not cool. But I'm not banning his cases because of the L zipper. I'm not saying, you know, because of construction, because like I said, I gave it to everybody. But you know, you guys see where I'm going with that, right? I mean, and that's it, you know. So that's the whole thing with the Vulturi stuff, you know. So other stuff, you know, stuff that we created, you know, that you may or may not see eventually on cases. This is a magnetic latch. You know, I've shown this many times. Magnetic latch. Here's another example of the L zipper. Check this out. So you've got a pocket that's inlaid, by the way. The pocket is inlaid. See, the pocket's inlaid. But watch this. You can use the L zipper and come around. Now it's a U zipper, But what do you have? You still have the nice square corners right there. Isn't that cool? So we got that, you know. Other cool stuff. We have, well, here's something else. You know, we have removable interiors. You need to change your interior. You just reach in and pull it out. See? Just like that. Pull the whole thing out. Put it back in. Perfect, just like a cartridge. See? These are things that I sat down and thought of to try to alleviate problems, you know, that I've experienced over the years of being a case builder. And actually, guy sends in a case the other day. I think it's gone already. I think we sent it out. Let me see. Well, anyway. Oh, here it is. So check this out. Check this out. The guy sends in a case the other day, and it's got a little tear right here, right here. Now normally that doesn't happen because this is nylon, so it had to have hit something pretty hard, you know, for that to happen. But anyway, so I just reached over and I took one of our cases, and I took a brand new case, and I took the interior out of it, and I put it in this case. This is the guy's old case, right? And I just put a brand new interior in it. See? Yeah, I'll probably do some more auctions like that. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna take off. This has been like forever here, so I know that I've ranted, you know, forever on this topic. And anyway, thank you guys very much for being customers. And now you know a little bit more about what makes JB Cases tick, and what I feel about knockoffs, and why the knockoffs that I decided to ban them from my open billiard market. So I guess that it's not all the way open yet, but it's open enough for all the good sellers and all the good people to transact there. So anyway, you guys take care. Thank you very much.